Gee, I can't wait till I go to high school.
Don't you say that. Don't you ever say that. Stay here. Stay as long as you can.
Hello, boys and girls. This is Coach Lawrence coming at you from the podcasting studio here at Woodridge Forest Middle School. And we have a special treat for you today. And that is, we have the entire 8th grade social studies team as part of this review lesson. Can you say hello, guys?
Oh, hello. Happy Saturday. I mean, we're giving up our Saturday because we love you guys so much.
Actually, we're up here. We get paid in tacos. That's how it works.
Which that was sponsored by Freddy's Tacos.
Yeah, it's and since we came to since last time, we've now made it official. We are the hottest podcast in America as far as middle school goes for two reasons. Number one, I hit the sauna this morning. It was toasty, and so in here, and then also we're gonna have to expand this room. This doesn't work anymore.
Yes,
our world map behind us doesn't even.
We're breaking down walls.
Yeah.
With this podcast.
In here.
Right. So we are the unofficial top middle school social studies podcast in America.
I was gonna say in New Caney ISD.
No, America.
America. Okay, all right.
Quit looking at that.
I know. It's weird.
We're just talking to each other.
All right.
So, guys, today we are talking about the STAAR test, but this is going to be a review for the mock test that we have coming up on Thursday. So, real pressure, no pressure here. This mock test is to see what you guys know, and I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the kids when they hear this.
I'd probably master it. I think.
We would hope so.
Yeah.
But
it's just to give them an idea of where they fall, right? So, for example, if they're around the pass range, which is anywhere around like mid-50s, right?
Yes.
To master's range, which is low 70s to mid-70s, right? So it gives them an idea of where, hey, I need 10 points to master. I need 10 points to pass. Or...
It gives us an idea, too.
Right.
Because, guys, we have already started this process of preparing the review and remediation for the social studies STAAR test. And so we have a lot planned for you guys, but we've got to figure out where y'all are. And we really want to encourage y'all to do your best. This is not something to just,
I mean, if
rush through.
If you need some motivation, just
do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! Some people dream of success while you're going to wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not going to stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it! If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.
Us, how we do our best.
Yeah.
In every endeavor in life.
Every day coming out, giving 100%.
Building a podcast out of nothing. It used to just be me and Coach Lawrence talking to each other with a microphone and a computer.
Yeah, and I actually I get a little teared up when I think about how far this has come. So,
but no, actually, and think about how many kids we have that might miss passing by one question, right? Because
every year.
I mean, there's like 20 something. You know, one question would have made a difference between pass fail, between masters and meets and meets the test standards. So, yeah, I mean, and you should have an idea because each question's like 2 points apiece. So, I mean, it's something like that. So, one question here or there could really make a big difference, and so hopefully this review is just kind of a comprehensive reminder of what we've gone over this year.
Yeah, and a lot of things that we hear from kids recently is we don't even have to pass the social studies test
with that voice too.
Yeah, with that, and you know what I have to say to them?
Voice.
Wrong.
Wrong.
You need to pass.
We need a Coach Lindsay meme. Can we get a Coach Lindsay meme with that?
I don't know if Gianna would like it.
Okay.
Shout out to Gianna. Without further ado, hey, let's get started. So, like I said, this is going to be a general overview. We're going to be taking the mock social studies test, and so we don't want y'all just jumping in cold. Some of this stuff that's going to be on there, they haven't seen since August and September.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long school year, so I mean, obviously we haven't seen some of this information, and we definitely want to have a little refresher.
Yeah, I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday.
Yeah.
And so
Let alone
donuts.
going back to colonization.
It was donuts. It was donuts.
Brought to you.
Yeah, brought to you by Pat's Donuts.
Yeah.
And kolaches and tacos.
So
but
basically,
not the
this
tacos.
is like the main, kind of topics for each bundle, right? Like
Yes.
just the big bullet points.
bare bones.
Yeah.
Bare bones right here.
All right.
If you could remember 1, 2, or 3 things from this bundle, remember these.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's start out with
Let's get it going.
the important amendments. These are the amendments that we know for sure of these 4 amendments. They are
We lost the
We got
poster over
posters.
here.
of these 4 amendments. I guarantee you there's going to be at least 3 questions from these 4
And
amendments.
it should be easy, right? We
Right.
should get those easy.
First Amendment. Go ahead, Miss Hinkle.
Yeah, so this one, we in my class constantly raps.
Yes.
Religion, assembly, press, petition, speech. So that would be that should be the first thing that comes to your mind. That First Amendment raps, and then rattle off religion, assembly, press, petition, speech.
And usually what they do is they'll ask. They're always going to ask about religion.
Always.
I don't think I've seen a test where they have not talked about the religion part
Mm-hmm.
of the First Amendment.
In fact, if a lot of times it's like if you see the word religion and it's anything about an amendment, that's that's what it is. Like I mean, there's only a couple other religion. When they put religion in, that the answer would be. But if it's not amendments, then it's obviously not it. So
Yeah, and then they might throw in a freedom of speech question in there. So you might have 2 questions over 1 amendment. First Amendment, guys, we've got to know the First Amendment.
Right.
First Amendment, all parts of it, because they're going to talk about religion for sure, and then they could come in and throw another part of the First Amendment.
So let's talk about press being anything like news related
Yes.
or publishing. So that is a guaranteed right under the First Amendment under press. So we've talked a lot about that. And then petition, you have the right to petition your government, as in like you want change. You can list your grievances. I mean, I think my second period petitioned me for free seating. I threw it away.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't, you have the right to petition your government,
Yes.
not your teacher. And then, of
yeah,
course,
we had a
speech.
petition going for Chick-fil-A. I think last year. It died in the House though,
Yeah.
it didn't make it to the Senate
Yeah,
floor.
there are proper channels for petitions.
But you know what?
to
One
go
question
through.
I get is which P comes first, press, petition. It doesn't matter. It's press or petition. Just know the two.
Whichever one rolls off your tongue
There you
the
go.
easiest.
Petition is writing something down, getting signatures, people to support it through signing it. and then press being obviously like Miss Hinkle talked about. So we should know those.
Yeah, and then assembly, group of people getting together.
Yep, just like in school, right?
Yeah, like when you have an assembly, when all y'all go to the gym for the
Like-
APs to talk to y'all.
One of those big guys comes in and rips a phone book in half. Right?
Have they done that?
Yeah, they've done that.
I don't know.
They did that. They did that when I was in middle school. They still. I think it's the same guy actually.
Yeah,
he
he's
He's
still
still ripping
he's,
phone
he-
books?
super
He is
jacked, and
90
he just-
years old, still ripping phone
just
books.
like
Just
it
unbelievable
was like a
shape.
it was like a barbell. He just bent it with his teeth.
Yeah.
He's got to put a cloth on it though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those dentures,
Yeah.
they don't
don't
hold
hold
like
up.
they used
Don't
to.
want to go every other week to the
Yeah.
dentist.
So and then Coach Willette, do you want to take those reconstruction amendments?
Yeah, we're just gonna go in order: 13th, 14th, 15th. I feel like we just covered that. We should know it. It's fresh on our brains. It's at the front, not the very back of our brains like bundle 1. So 13th being abolish slavery. 14th giving freedmen citizenship rights, and then 15th right to vote. So free citizens vote. 13th, 14th, 15th.
Got to remember that. You remember
Yeah.
those 3 words along with those 3 numbers. No reason why you should miss that.
Right.
All right, so let's move on. We know those amendments are going to be on there. That's why we wanted to cover those right off the bat. Now we're going to look at going in order from the bundles we've done. So, bundle 1. Guys, at the very beginning, we said there are 2 main reasons that colonies were founded. Those 2 main reasons, economic profit, or trade and profit, however you want to put it. It could be mentioned as either, and then religious freedom. This is another part where you're going to see something about religious freedom. So 2 main reasons, economic profit, religious freedom. And from there, when we get more in depth, you guys are going to need to know which colonies were founded for those 2 reasons. And it's really easy doing that if you can just remember these colonies were for economic profit, these colonies were for religious freedom. But we'll talk some more about that when we do our bundle 1 review.
And a lot of it is by regions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yes.
North
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
religion, the South being economic, just
Yeah.
because of geography. So,
Yeah.
and when
which
kids
brings us to our
hey,
next part,
And
nice
then-
segue.
Nice.
oh, I didn't even know that. Didn't
Yeah.
even read ahead. So, I feel like we all have an idea of religion. I think a little bit better than economic, because I say what is economic, thinking we know it's not just money. Right, it's something of value, something that you can, grow, like tobacco,
Yeah.
like cotton. You
Yeah.
can sell for money, and that's the same thing. Just like a phone today or a computer today is valuable, you could sell it. So, anyways, economic.
Anything having to do with money.
Obviously, geography. It being hot, it being flat, land. You don't want to, pick crops off of a mountain. That
Yeah.
kind of stuff, right? So it's just what the land looks like, how the land can produce crops for you to ultimately sell and make money from.
Yeah, and so that's
being the South.
the geography allowed for Jamestown, the first permanent settlement, to survive, because with the favorable geography and when the slaves came over in 1619 to Jamestown, they were able to, I think Coach Willette said, they were able to make tobacco, and that became tobacco, and that became a staple of the South, and it's what made that particular colony thrive and be successful and actually last. And then one of the main topics that comes up with the colonies, the next one, is representative self-government.
Yeah.
Representative self-government. And that is what, because these colonists were so far away from the motherland, the mother country, representative self-government became a characteristic of these colonies, and it would be something that would continue to increase as we get into the Revolutionary War. That was one of the main reasons. They're like, hey, we can do this. We can do this ourselves. We don't need them over there telling us what to do. And so with representative government, you should be thinking House of Burgesses, Virginia House of Burgesses. And then the self-government, when you think self-government, you got to think what, Coach Willett? Self-government, what document do we think of?
Mayflower Compact every single time, right?
1620 Mayflower Compact.
Hey, you see a Mayflower Compact in a question, answer is self-government. Actually, sometimes they take out the word self.
Yeah.
Say government, but whatever.
Yeah.
Mayflower Compact, self-government.
Running their own government, something like that. So yeah, that's bundle 1, and that's the kind of stuff you guys are going to get asked about. All right.
Rockin' and rollin'.
Let's go. Revolutionary War, bundle 2. Miss Hinkle, you want to talk about what the main reason these colonists were angry?
Okay, so we just talked about it. They set up this precedent of self-government. So now, as we get further down the line, they've been self-reliant for hundreds of years, well, a couple hundred years or so, and they're getting angry about taxation without representation. They've been able to handle themselves. So once we see the taxes, the English government imposing taxes to pay for the French and Indian War.
I'm getting this going for my IG. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. We see the colonists getting upset about the taxation without representation.
Yeah, and so it wasn't the taxes in themselves, which nobody likes taxes, but it was the taxation without their consent. They had not given their consent through their representation. So
because we need taxes, right? Like we drive on roads because of taxes.
Yes.
Hey, we got a nice podcast studio because of taxes, right? I mean, how could we survive without taxes?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we would not survive because our salaries are paid through.
We need a salary.
Through the government. So there it is. So yeah, thank you. Be sure to thank your parents for paying their taxes so that we can teach you.
Thank your
bestow
parents.
all this knowledge on you.
All right.
Because they paid their property tax.
Good stuff.
So, and then probably the most important event of the Revolutionary War, 1776.
Declaration of
Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, and it did 2 things. Coach Willett, what 2 things did it do?
Well, the big one is grievances, and grievances are basically just complaints, right?
Yeah.
They were listing, here's why we don't want to be associated or ruled by you. Yeah, exactly. So bad, here's the bad things. We don't. This is what we're unhappy with, and then unalienable rights.
Yeah.
I was throwing that to Miss Hinkle.
I'm sorry. I totally dropped it.
I was like,
can we make some eye contact?
I wasn't supposed to look. You told me not to.
Don't look at the. You can look at her. Don't look at the camera.
And unalienable rights. You're born with them.
Yeah,
they are your God-given rights.
Life, liberty,
and pursuit of happiness.
There you go.
So
that's it. And then as far as dates and events, LSY, Lexington and Concord. First battle of the Revolutionary War. This gets things kicked off, and it was because the British were trying to take away the colonists' guns. And if there's anything you know about the United States of America, don't take our guns away.
That's
don't try to take our guns away. And so Lexington, Concord. Did you hit something? So Lexington and Concord, and then the Battle of Saratoga. Saratoga is the turning point, the Saratoga turning point, because the French look at the colonists and they say, hey, man, these guys got some fight in them. They might have a chance here. And so they decide to be allies with the colonists. And then eventually that leads to Yorktown.
So, and that is our last battle of the Revolution. And so that's where it's not official.
Yeah,
it's unofficial.
So Cornwallis surrenders, and then the Treaty of Paris, 1783, is agreed upon, and we are recognized as a sovereign nation. We get the Northwest Territory, and so that that is where the United States as we know it becomes officially its own country. So yeah, we're rocking and rolling. Just finished Bundle 2. Let's move on to Bundle 3, Constitution. So, Coach Willett, after the Declaration of Independence, we're saying we're a new country, but we've got to have some set of rules that's governing this new independent country. What was our first set of rules?
So we wrote the Articles of Confederation, and the bottom line was it just had a lot of problems, right?
But then the Shays Rebellion happens, and Shays Rebellion shows that, yeah, maybe things need to change. And then from that, you have people realizing, hey, and that's good that people realize, hey, this isn't working. We've got to change things.
Yeah.
And that's when we hold the Constitutional Convention of 1787, and the government is basically rewriting the whole deal.
And when you say Constitutional Convention, those are big old words, right? Constitutional Convention. All it is a meeting, right? They're just trying to figure out, what are we going to do about this? You know, there's fighting going on. We don't have an army to do anything about it. You know, there's problems. We need to figure this out. Like, it's just kind of like, hey, let's get together and talk about this.
Yeah.
It's just a meeting.
And
Convention.
so the biggest part of the Constitutional Convention was how is representation going to be decided to where this government is able to run effectively. You have two plans that are put in, the New Jersey plan and the Virginia plan. The New Jersey plan, Coach Willett?
No.
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 The New Jersey plan.
The New Jersey
He wasn't ready.
Okay, so the New Jersey plan was so you had this issue with states and how many people lived in states, right? And so if you have small states with not a lot of people in them, they are
like
not
New Jersey.
Like New Jersey, they're not going to be able to compete with the big states with a lot of people in them as far as voting goes, right?
Yes.
So it's like, you know, hey, if us three, you know, held a vote for what we wanted for lunch versus the rest of the school, because the rest of the teachers were Virginia, and they would outvote us every single time. Like, we would never get what we wanted for lunch, which would be steak fingers from my end, really, to be honest.
I don't know if I'm
Steak
on that
fingers,
plan,
mashed potatoes, and gravy. Anyway, okay, so we would never get our steak fingers because we'd always be outvoted if the rest of the teachers represented a big state like Virginia,
And
right?
that's where we have the Virginia plan, which was based
on population. The bigger and better.
Bigger states, more people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always outvote the small states. Small states said it wasn't fair. We're never going to get our steak fingers.
And
That would have been a good one for Texas. I mean,
yeah,
if we'd won that.
Yeah, and so what they were able to do is they were able to compromise.
What is a compromise, Coach Lawrence?
Hey, I'm so glad you asked, Coach Willett.
Hey, come on.
So a compromise is when you give up something that you want to happen in order to get something that you want to happen. So there's an agreement on both sides. Some people give up a little to get something. So giving up something to get something, that's a compromise. And it wasn't just a good compromise, Coach Willett. It was
It was the greatest one.
Yeah, it was a great compromise.
Yeah.
And so what the great compromise did, Miss Hinkle?
It gave us our bicameral legislature.
Bicameral legislature. There it
Big
is.
old word.
And so
I love
yeah,
it.
and so some of the kids might remember the
two
two-camp bicameral legislature. Yeah. And so that gave one house of Congress that was along with the New Jersey plan,
Based off of equal votes.
Yeah, equal votes, which is the Senate, and then it gave one house to the Virginia plan, which was a house that was based on population. And the next compromise was the 3/5 compromise, which was meant to decide how much slaves would count towards representation. And so the 3/5 compromise counts 3 out of every 5 slaves for representation purposes. So then the Constitution is drafted, but it's not just like, okay, hey, it's drafted. It's the law now. You have to ratify or approve it. And from that, there came two separate groups. Can you talk about that, Ms. Sinkle?
All right, we've got our Federalists who want a strong federal government. They want a strong central government. And so they approve the ratification of this new Constitution, which is going to strengthen our government. On the other hand, we have our anti-Federalists who are against having so much power in the government. So they want the Bill of Rights added to protect individual rights. They are adamant that this government not be given so much power.
Yeah. And so with the Federalists, you have their ideas expressed through a series of essays called the Federalist Papers, and then they were essentially able to ratify the Constitution with the addition of the Bill of Rights. And so you'll also need to know those 10 amendments. We talked about the first one, but you guys need to go over those 10 amendments.
1 through 10, yeah.
And then also you need to know what each principle, the CR flips, represents. C.
Checks and balances.
R.
Republicanism.
F. Federalism. L.
Limited government.
I.
Individual rights.
Where are we?
P.
P. Popular sovereignty. S.
Separation of powers.
Oh,
the
yeah.
3 branches
Good.
of government.
Yeah, so not just know what they are, but you need to know what they mean.
And honestly, there's usually only like one question on the STAAR, I feel like, about a principle, right?
Yeah, but you want to get it right.
Yeah, you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
That helps.
So, but it's good to know just
in
general.
We all want everyone to go to high school next year.
Yeah,
you know what I
we
mean?
do. We love you guys.
Yeah.
But
except for maybe Caroline. I'll give Caroline a shout out.
Oh.
She said that she wouldn't mind being back next year. She'd be awesome.
I could use those smiling high fives.
Yeah, smiling high fives, just running down the hallway and just me
Hi.
yelling, Kamina!
All right, yeah, so that's bundle 3. Now, bundle 4, the New Republic. This period is the presidencies of the first 5, and that's where we go. I think I say work a job, make money. Coach Willette says...
I said we all just make money, but
yeah,
work a job, make money.
We all
do
just make what money. Works for you.
Yeah.
Do what works for you. So we got Washington.
We got Washington.
Washington. Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. And so those are the first 5 presidents. The main issue here is these first 5 presidents are trying to figure out how much power should this federal government actually have. We don't want to go back to where we were, where a king basically is running the whole country. The citizens aren't getting all their rights, but we need enough power to have an effective government.
I think about it like this, in that in the history of the world, no one had set up a government like this. We were the first to do so, and the first 5, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, were all figuring that out, right?
Yeah,
it was like, hey, what do we do? We've never done this before. We don't have an example of how other countries have done this before. We're going to just try and see what works, right?
Yeah. The burden's really on Washington to kick it off, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So.
And then we see the development of political parties. Those two sides, one side comes from the Anti-Federalists, led by Jefferson, which is known as the Democratic Republicans. And then the other side, birthed from the Federalists, led by Alexander Hamilton. They still are called the Federalists. So that's political parties, and they basically are starting to form from the Constitutional Convention. And so George Washington sets a great example as president, and we talked about his farewell address. The main point of his farewell address was one, we need to try and avoid these expensive foreign wars. So he wanted the United States to stay neutral.
Yeah, he's like, let's do our own thing.
Yeah.
Let's stop being involved in all that mess.
Yeah, because it's gonna give us a lot of debt, because we've realized we've just come out of
debt.
Did I say debt?
I don't know. It sounded
The kids
I thought you
say
said
debt.
I thought you
all
said
the time.
depth.
I don't
Debt.
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 But anyways,
Don't you owe me? You got some debt? Don't you owe me some money?
I don't owe you any money.
Come on.
No. So the United States has basically fought 2 wars in the 1760s, 1780s, and
let's just do our own thing now, right?
Yeah. Let's try and avoid that so we don't pile up all this debt. And then, despite what we just talked about in the formation of political parties, Washington was like, hey, let's not do political parties because it's going to turn people against each other. People that ought to be going towards the same goal and have the same love for a country, they're going to turn against each other and hate each other. He knew back in 1790 that was what was going to happen, and it did.
Yeah,
let's get going. Talking about political parties.
And then we mentioned war debt. To pay off the war debt from the American Revolution, you have Alexander Hamilton, who was the Treasury Secretary, comes up with a financial plan, and that plan included the formation of the National Bank, paying off state and federal debts from the war, and then passing new bonds, and then paying back the old bonds that had been passed. All right, and then Marbury versus Madison, Miss Hinkle.
All right. When you see this case to the Supreme Court, we established judicial review. Okay, this is under Chief Justice John Marshall.
Yeah, and so basically judicial review, I don't know how many times we've been over judicial review. Supreme Court's power to declare a law constitutional or unconstitutional.
It's not complicated. I mean, the judicial branch, which are the judges, review laws. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, they review, the judicial branch reviews. Let's not make it more complicated than that.
It's like, hey, we are going to, as a Supreme Court, going to go back over, we're going to review these laws to see if they're constitutional or not. What do you think we should call that?
Judicial. I think it should be called judicial review.
That sounds good. Yeah.
That's good.
So then we have in the presidency of James Madison, we have the War of 1812, and it is with Great Britain. But good comes from it because we have an economic boom because of increased manufacturing in the United States.
Basically, we were fighting against the British. We didn't want to keep trading with the British, right? We didn't want to give them any money.
Well, and they cut off us trading with other countries as well.
Yeah, and so we need to start making our own goods. So we're now that obviously creates jobs. We need factories. We need workers. We need things.
And that led to the era of good feeling, and then on down the line,
we're still in it. I'm feeling great this morning.
I'm feeling yes.
To be honest.
And so and then that it eventually led to the Industrial Revolution as well. And then Coach Willett, the last of the New Republic presidents, James Monroe. I love how you say Monroe.
Monroe. I'm telling you, okay, there's going to be, probably, most likely, there's going to be a question, and it's going to be a cartoon, because who doesn't love cartoons? And it's going to be a guy standing over in the Western Hemisphere, which is, North and South America, and he's going to, be pointing
right above Coach Willett's head.
Yeah, at the Eastern Hemisphere.
Isn't it Uncle Sam?
There's going to be a guy standing right around this region, okay? Mm-hmm. And he's going to be pointing over here at this region.
Probably
and he's saying, and he's going to be doing this. No, no, no.
You're not pointing off screen, so it's like I'm going to have to put the picture over here.
Yeah, so no, he's saying, no, don't come over here. Stay over there. We won't have any issues. There we go. So it's just kind of like...
Right.
I know.
It was even backwards.
That's good. So...
Good.
We were talking earlier about everything.
Yeah, and then we're moving on to Bundle 5, Jacksonian era and the...
That's just Andrew Jackson, right?
Yes.
I mean, take off the I-A-N, Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson. Increased voting rights, specifically
white male
for
suffrage.
White males.
Yeah.
Yeah, so regular people are now getting to vote, and so that is a good thing. When more people get to vote, that is a good thing, but the negative aspect of Andrew Jackson's presidency.
Oh, Indian Removal Act.
Boo.
Yeah. Wait.
Trail of Tears. Just sadness.
Yeah.
Just sad. We need like a what's the Sarah McLachlan song going right now? We need that. That's what we need right now.
Think of those dogs.
And-
The little dogs.
All right, when you edit.
ASPCA.
Yeah.
Right. So, with the Indian Removal Act, I mean, the U.S. government is like, hey, we need this land, we need these resources. You know, this is vital to our economy, and we're not going to sit here and wait for what they viewed as an uncivilized society to just willingly give it up.
And they had found some gold in Georgia.
Yeah, they were basically like, listen, you got some pretty awesome land here. I like the scenery.
We know y'all were here first.
This whole oil stuff around here, you got not oil just then, but crops, gold, Hey, why don't you go take that desert over there up in Oklahoma?
It's really lovely over there.
Yeah, there's
red
a lot
clay.
of sand.
Oh.
It's like, hey, how would you guys like to move to Oklahoma?
Boo. All right, yeah. That would have been.
Oh, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
Oh my God.
I wonder if anyone's from Oklahoma.
Oh.
If
So I
you're
lived
from
there for
Oklahoma,
2 years.
Oklahoma is a great
It's so nice.
Yeah.
Good.
We lived there for 2 years, and that was my reaction every time. I'm like, we have to go home.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
it's
no.
such a lovely
No.
place with such lovely people.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Just get.
there's a Supreme Court case that goes to fight this, and the Supreme Court rules in favor of the person who is suing that lives on this Native American land, and they're like, yeah, the state laws and the federal laws don't apply to this Indian territory, but Andrew Jackson, King Andrew, King Andrew up here. Let's see if that works.
Yeah.
King Andrew says, "No, we're gonna boot you out anyways," and so
Yeah,
he ignores the ruling
Ignores
of the
it, yeah.
Supreme Court. They move west, and that's where the Trail of Tears.
So they think he abuses his power,
Oh,
basically,
absolutely.
right? All right.
Okay, and then the second part of Bundle 5 is growth. And we're not going to go through these. I'll put up a map right here so that you can see all those different ones. It starts with basically the U.S. Okay, and I think what it says, U.S. likes Moody Gardens over Fiesta, Texas.
Wrong.
Yes, U.S. likes Moody Gardens over Fiesta, Texas. So it starts with the U.S., then it has Louisiana Purchase, and then it has U.S. likes... No, it's Fiesta, Texas over Moody Gardens because it's Florida.
Do you have any idea what he's talking about?
Yeah, it's a mnemonic device.
Yeah.
Is this gonna work?
Yeah, I don't know.
If you remember the
just
order, it
it
works
just helped
great.
me. Yeah, if I remember
All right.
the saying. So Florida, and then it goes from Florida to Texas,
To
Fiesta,
Oregon?
Texas over Oregon, Moody, Max Concession, Gardens, Gas and Purchase. So yeah. So,
Okay.
I hope you don't struggle through that on the start
Yes.
test like I just
Yes.
did. So yeah, and then
So we're not hitting all that stuff then.
no, we'll just put
Okay.
this picture up and
All right.
they can look at it. And also a part through this with the acquisition of the Mex concession in California, you have the California Gold Rush, and you have immigration that comes from this. It brought migrant people, the 49ers who are moving out, and then also it brought immigrants to work in the gold fields and work on the Transcontinental Railroad, which was the Chinese.
You know, one of the best parts about America, I'm gonna
Yeah, I was about to say, when Coach Willett thinks of immigration, he thinks more food.
all right.
So we're in
I'm with
favor
you,
of
man.
it.
I'm with you.
All right, and then moving on to Bundle 6, we have the Industrial Revolution. And so the main three things that kind of the overarching effects that you need to remember from the Industrial Revolution, you have increased efficiency, increased productivity, and the decrease of product prices. So all of those things make products more affordable and easier to make.
I mean, I think the most difficult one to explain is why do products decrease in price, right? Like, that's the one question I feel like I got.
Well, it's hard at this time to explain supply and demand.
Well, I explained it like this. If I have one pen, right, that I sell for $10.
Because
right?
it takes so long to make one pen.
So I have one pen. I sell it for $10. And this guy over here has got 10 pens. And he sells it for $2. Each one for $2, right? Which one are you going to buy? Are you going to buy one pen for $10? One pen for $10.
There you go.
Or are you going to buy one pen for $2? Because if he sells all 10 pens, how much does he get? $20, right? He gets more money. He gets more money for less, selling it for less, and then people buy that. I'm going to buy the $2 pen,
But he's
right?
able to make them faster
But
and more efficiently, which allows him to sell it at a cheaper price. So.
Exactly. So he's selling it for cheaper. People are buying it for cheaper, but he's still making more money off of it because he has more pens to sell. So
yeah, and so some of those.
Is that confusing?
No,
That makes sense?
no. Yeah, absolutely. You're good.
all right.
So
We can use donuts. We can go with donut examples.
so
a guy has one
a guy-
donut.
yes.
All right, he's gonna
okay.
sell it. He's gonna sell that donut for $50.
Or, you know, like on The Office where Kevin can only think in pi math.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, what
Yeah.
if you have, it's like, well, the numbers, it doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It doesn't work. So some of those innovations and inventions that come along with the Industrial Revolution, you have the steamboat and Robert Fulton's steamboat, and then you have the steam locomotive. So the steam engine is increasing the efficiency of transportation and movement of goods, and it's also connecting the Northeast to the West. So
Yeah,
that's
it's like
good.
flying on an airplane today. Who wants to drive from New York to California? You know, that would take, I don't know, a year or something. It would take forever. It would take a long time.
Yeah, I think
So,
maybe
who would
off
want to
the-
drive from over here
Oh, jeez.
to over here? That would take way too long. Just
Yeah.
take an airplane. It's
Yeah.
faster, right? It takes like an hour.
Yeah, and then also, speaking of transportation, you have the infrastructure, which Coach Willett, infrastructure means
It's like the basics, right? The fundamentals, like what you...
Wrong.
No, infrastructure.
the
think we're
structural makeup of a society.
Okay.
Yeah, so the structural makeup of a society, and those things are the National Road, Transcontinental Railroad, and then the Erie Canal that connects Lake Erie to the Hudson River in New York and made New York City the transportation hub and shipping hub. And so, and then right here at the last two, we'll talk about Eli Whitney's. Of course, he did interchangeable parts, but the most important one, the cotton gin, because it increased the demand for raw cotton in the South, which increased the demand for slavery. And so with this increased demand for slavery, of course, now you're going to have more conflict over whether or not we should be having slaves. And then Samuel Morse's telegraph.
Stop it. Stop what? You're talking about me in Morse code. You know what? Joke's on you, because I know Morse code. Ha!
Yeah, that's what we're doing. In our very limited free time and with our very limited budget, we went and got a nanny, and then we went out and took a class on a very outmoded and very unnecessary form of communication just so we could talk about you in front of you.
Yep, that's exactly what we did.
Hey, tap away.
Revolutionized communication through the Morse code being able to be transmitted over long distances. And all of this led to urbanization. All these jobs are developing in cities. Well, I want to go where there's jobs so I can make more money. You go from the country, these rural That's Laurel. What?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be crazy if they hear?
Yeah,
What was
well,
it?
I was thinking.
What was it?
Yanni?
Yanni. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yanni
what?
or Laurel?
Yeah. What? Laurel.
All right, is
Roll.
rural. What he's
Rural.
trying to say is countryside.
Yeah, from
I
the
got the
country
horses
to
in the
the
bag.
city, big city, which is urban areas that led to urbanization. All right, and then the second part of Bundle 6, the reform movement change. Anybody who wants to take that?
So
Miss Hinkle.
we got the second Great Awakening here, and then so we have preachers now preaching about personal salvation. Like, it's not just for the elite. It's not predestined, meaning that God had already selected people who were going to heaven. So with that, people start thinking about, okay, what's right? What's morally right? What's morally wrong? And through that, we start looking at how do we treat people. So the biggest movement that it has the biggest impact on is the abolition movement. And then other movements that are involved, we have the women's suffrage movement and whatnot.
Labor reform, prison and asylum reform, education reform, transcendentalism, and
Which
so
always goes with what on a test?
transcendentalism. It's either going to be Ralph Waldo Emerson or Henry David Thoreau.
But going with paintings or poetry over or about
nature.
Yeah, well,
It's always something about
no,
nature.
that's Hudson River School.
Are you sure? No,
Yeah,
it's
Hudson
not.
River School was the
They-
group of artists that painted nature
Nature.
scenes. Yeah,
But
it does have a
Emerson-
tie. It does
They're
have a
all
tie
tied
with
Yeah,
nature.
they're all tied
yeah.
together because Emerson definitely writes about nature too. So I mean,
Yeah,
that
they were
goes
like
together.
they were like
Actually, I
the
think
The original
1800
hippies.
hippies.
I
Yeah.
think one year it was a question with Emerson, and then it actually said nature, and the answer chose.
Yeah,
nature,
yeah.
Right. So, anyways,
Right up here, you'll see this triangle, and I think
it's like God, nature, man.
yeah,
all right.
it's and
Just know the big long word that starts with a T and ends with transcendentalism.
who is that kid that always used to come up to me and be like, transcendentalist? Do you know what I'm talking
No,
about?
no.
Oh man, it was one of your kids, and he was like, Coach Lawrence, transcendentalist. But Ms. Hinkle mentioned the women's suffrage movement. Susan B. Anthony,
Yeah.
the Seneca Falls Convention, saying, "Hey, women." All men are created equal, and by, of course, men, it wasn't specifically talking about men, it was talking about humanity. All of these people are created equal, and so women deserve the right to
Yes.
vote as well.
Suffrage being
Suffrage.
the right to vote.
Yeah.
So
Right to vote.
don't think of suffrage
Suffering.
as suffering. That's not the same thing. Suffrage means the right to vote.
Yeah, and then abolitionists, the main ones being Harriet Beecher Stowe, with Uncle Tom's Cabin, Frederick Douglass, who was the escaped slave writer, and if any question about
Probably
a
the number
male,
one,
yeah,
right?
any question about a male abolitionist leader, it's probably going to be about Frederick Douglass. John Brown was a white man who, through violent means, was a fierce abolitionist, killed a lot of people, and would eventually be hung because of his because of his actions.
Was seen in the South as a terrorist, basically,
and,
right?
and in the North, to abolitionists, he was seen
He's a hero.
as a martyr.
Yeah.
Hero, yeah.
And then and William Lloyd Garrison was, and Harriet Tubman, for some reason, I don't know why I don't have.
I think a lot of people
Harriet
know
Tubman.
that she goes with Underground Railroad.
Underground
so-
Railroad, yeah. She's going to be on there as well. So that's Bundle 6, and now we're in the last one, and we're
I got
making-
about 17 minutes.
That's
before I
perfect.
gotta
We
bounce out of here.
shouldn't take that long. And so Civil War and Reconstruction, just Coach Willette, do you want to take some of the causes from the past leading up to the Civil War, those causes from Dred Scott to Jefferson Davis, and then I'll let Ms. Hinkle take the battles.
So
He needs some milk.
where are we at?
You've got to start on Dred Scott.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was like, man, this is going to take all
it's gonna take
I
17
was
minutes.
like,
alright.
what is
He's
he
in for
even
like-
doing?
Alright.
It's the script. Stick to the script.
Dred Scott, v. Sanford. Basically, Dred Scott was a slave. His owner did some work in the North, which he had joined him in the North, then came back, and then Dred Scott was like, "Hey, I was in the North. I was free. I'm gonna sue for my freedom."
Yeah.
Okay. And he lost. They said that you're not free. So it extended slavery, basically.
Yeah, and then you have the Missouri Compromise of 1820 adds Maine as a free state, Missouri as a slave state, establishes the Missouri Compromise line. You have the Compromise of 1850, admitted California as a free state. New Mexico and Utah get to vote. Washington, D.C. no longer trade slaves, and then harsher fugitive slave laws are passed. And then the Kansas-Nebraska Act, Ms. Hinkle.
All right, so we'd already established that slavery was allowed below the line from the Missouri Compromise and above was free. And so then once we have Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, both states now get to vote on whether to allow or not allow slavery. And this creates a lot of turmoil because we'd already established that it was a below or above. And now that basically repeals the Missouri Compromise.
Yeah.
And repeals being overturns.
Gets rid of.
Yes.
Gets rid of.
Gets
there
rid
we
of.
go.
It's no longer in effect. And then the election of 1860 sees the election of Abraham Lincoln as the president of the Union. So we have secession, or breaking apart of South Carolina, and then the other southern states go along with that. Their president, Jefferson Davis, says, "Hey, we can do this. We're not going to start a war, but we'll fight one if y'all want to." Lincoln, at his inauguration, says, "Hey, I won't mess with slavery, but you guys have not left because you can't do it legally." So they had a differing view on secession, but despite both of them saying like, "Hey, we don't necessarily want to fight," Jefferson Davis saying, "But we will." Fort Sumter happens and the Civil War begins. So, Ms. Hinkle, the main events of the Civil War.
All right, so we have Antietam, which is our bloodiest bloodiest single day. So we have 23,000 casualties in like 12 hours,
Close to
and
24.
I think we were talking about how the battlefield was dry.
Yeah.
And then the ground becomes so soaked with blood that when they go out to
wagons
couldn't carry the bodies out because it was just absolutely saturated. So super gross, but I mean that just gives you an idea.
That inspires the
Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
And which freed slaves in rebel states only.
Yeah, and so slavery is now, whether they had originally planned it, slavery, getting rid of slavery becomes part of the Civil War now and a part of the Union goal. So a lot of people get behind it that weren't necessarily behind it before, when it was just, hey, let's get these states back here.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna take Gettysburg. I'm gonna take the mic on this one. So think about Gettysburg as the G, turns, right? Just like the Battle of Saratoga, the S, turns. So it is the turning point in the war. All right, it's the turning point in the war for the North, where they start pushing back into the South.
Yeah, and then we have the Battle of Vicksburg, which is led by Ulysses S. Grant, and it's right around the same time as Gettysburg, and they get access through the victory at Vicksburg. They get access and control of the Mississippi River, which divides the South and cuts off a huge transportation route. So the main people, Robert E. Lee, commanding officer of the Confederate forces, he surrenders to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. His right-hand man was
Stonewall Jackson. Which Confederate general, you should know, with Battle of Bull Run, Fredericksburg, and then actually was killed by friendly fire.
His own people.
His own troops.
And then on the Union side, Miss Hinkle?
All right, so we have leading the Union Army, we have Ulysses S. Grant, who we know goes on to become president, and Sherman in his March to the Sea.
Yeah, former president of the Louisiana Military Academy, which
And then
became LSU.
my second favorite name after Crispus Attucks in history, Hiram Rhodes Revels, being the first African American elected to Congress.
Yeah, and then Reconstruction, real quick, Reconstruction was where the South was going to be rebuilt after the devastation of war. You have the black codes being passed. You have the scallywags, who were people who were viewed as traitors, who were trying to help the
carpetbaggers from the north.
The carpetbaggers from the north, who the carpetbaggers were right here. The carpetbaggers were people who came from the north to the south trying to help Reconstruction efforts. And it didn't really go well because you have a long-term effect, and it didn't really get better until the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s.
It's like 100 years later, basically.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, crazy. So,
Hey!
hey guys, that was good.
That's
Hey guys,
excellent.
thank you for listening. We know that you are going to do great on your science mock test on Wednesday, and even better on your social studies mock test on Thursday.
Make sure you get a lot of rest on Wednesday night.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Lots of rest.
Good breakfast.
Yeah.
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 Not
You guys
Freddy's
got this.
tacos, Pat's Donuts. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys.
Bye, guys.
That's a wrap.
Well, for all of us here, you stay classy.